Hey guys, what's up? This is Austin from the Coach's Compound with my new intern, Thomas Kraft here. He'll be helping us out with all these videos and try to make them better. Okay? So if you like him, make sure to leave a nice comment for him, okay? Today we are going over the squat, specifically the air squat, and why you should add it into your life. Tune on in. So when it comes to functional movements in this sphere of CrossFit or strength and conditioning, a lot of times what we do is delineate the functional movements into three different things. We have the squat, the hinge, which is also known as the deadlift, and number three would be the press. That could be a bench press, shoulder press, whatever it may be. So when going over the functional movements, these are movements that are done every single day in some capacity. In specific, the squat is done about 1,000 times a day without even thinking about it. So with the squat being one of the functional movements, it's something that you're going to do every single day. As you can see, Thomas is doing it in many different ways right here. When you sit down, when you pick something off the ground, when you go to the bathroom, notice, think of all the times that you do that throughout the day. Clearly it's going to be thousands of times, either a day or especially a week. So knowing how to squat correctly is going to be of utmost importance to you. So before we start squatting, it's important for you as a coach to assess your athlete's ability to squat. And we're specifically going to go through the body, the lower body, seeing at the ankle joint, the knee joint, go over hamstring flexibility and the hip joint as well, to see if you have the adequate flexibility to even do a squat in general. So here is an assessment for the ankle joint specifically. We're going to set up a tape measure to a flat surface here. For guys, the standard is going to be 5.5 inches. Women would be 4.5 inches. Since Thomas is obviously a man, he's going to put his whatever foot he wants to go with first on 5.5 inches. Okay, what he's going to do, without turning his hip completely backwards, he's going to try to touch this knee to the rig without bringing his heel up off the ground. Notice how he can't do it here. So what you would do is I would tell Tommy to scoot up. Let's go to 4 now. See if you can do it. Okay, so we got it. At that point, you would work backwards. So then I would go 4.5 inches. I'm not going to have him do it, but 4.5 inches so you can have a standard that you can start working on. And obviously you want to work both legs. Make sure that heel does not come up off the ground. This next one, we are checking Tommy's knee specifically to see if he has full range of motions in his knee. If you've had previous knee injuries or knee surgeries, you probably will not be able to do this. And in your case, that is okay. We can work on that later. What I'm going to have him do is I'm going to have him sit his butt back onto his heels. In this case, ankle discomfort is not going to be a big factor here. It's literally just checking to see if his knee can go through it in general. So the previous test was a precursor to this test. We call this the lying heel to butt test. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell Tommy just to relax. Go ahead and rest your head on your hands. Okay? I'm going to tell him to I'm going to bring each individual heel to the same side butt, and we're going to ask if he has any pain, lower back pain, quad stretch, in any position that he does this at. So I'll grab it. Since I know his knee has full range of motion, I feel perfectly fine going down, pressing hard into it. Do you feel anything on that?
Nope.
Cool.
On that side.
And then you switch sides. Okay. So if, like I said, if they pass the previous test, feel free to really press hard to see if you can get that heel into the butt. And if you cannot do it, that would be a fail to this test. This next test, you ask your athlete to lay on their back here. This is called the knee to rib test here. What you're going to do is you're going to instruct your athlete to completely relax, let you do all the work with your leg, and you're going to take their knee straight on to the bottom rib. Sometimes you'll see that or find that as you go straight, there is a block, like it literally will not go any further, and the athlete says they feel a pinching. That means that their femur is hitting into their hip joint, so that you need to go out a little bit more. I'll show you both of these here. I'm going to take his knee. I'm going to lay down, touch his chest. Okay? And I'm also going to reset him And I'm gonna come out to the side as well, right there. If I can get to that bottom rib on both sides, he has full range of motion and is passing this test. So this next test is an inline lunge test. Here's our tape measure again. What the athlete is trying to do here is they are trying to keep their chest completely upright in a lunge stance, and they're gonna try to lunge forward and go as far as they can go without letting their chest drop forward. What you do at this point is you would find the front of their hip, take it, straight line down. Men, the standard is 1 foot, so 12 inches. Women, the standard is 1 foot less at 11 inches. So you would test both sides of this to see if they have adequate flexibility in their hips as well. So a test that you can do with seeing where you should place your feet during a squat is I'm going to have Thomas face his feet completely straight forward. I'm going to have him squeeze his butt as hard as you can. Okay. Now he's going to bring his feet out to like 15 degrees out to the side. Same thing. Generally going to be around the same strength there. And then keep going out. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And then just keep on going. You can see, you'll be able to feel this if you try this. At the end ranges here, this is called end range of external rotation. Your butt just cannot squeeze as hard as it can, and it's also just harder to balance in general. Would you say so?
Yes. I feel like I'm going to fall forward.
Well, there we go. Don't want you doing that. So when you're squatting, generally, when it comes to feet straight forward, we use that as an assessment tool. Everyone should be able to squat a bodyweight squat with their feet completely straight forward. Just for an assessment though. It'll show adequate ankle dorsiflexion, which is important when squatting, but when it comes to practical purposes, 0, which is at right now, to about 15 degrees out to the side is gonna be perfectly fine, okay? As long as you don't wanna see them losing ankle dorsiflexion and activation in the butt.
Now going over how to actually air squat, you can notice that Tommy's feet are about hip width apart. His hands are coming out in front of him as a counterbalance. From the side angle here, you will see that he's initiating with a slight bow of his chest forward and his butt is coming back. We'll show it again here. So slight bow forward, butt's going back. But then at the bottom position, notice how he is sitting between his legs. He's pushing his knees out over his toes. This is called external rotation of the hip. Much like the shoulder, a ball and socket joint becomes more stable in external rotation. That's why you want your knees out in the bottom, and you especially want all your toes on the ground as well to create as much force as possible. Notice how his back is flat, head is facing forward, arms are there to counterbalance himself, and from there he would stand up, ending the rep with his hips all the way up, and he's just standing straight.
The importance of teaching your athletes an air squat is of utmost importance. Like we said, you do it every single day, probably thousands of times a day without even thinking about it. And going over the assessments to see if your athletes have the prerequisite flexibility to go through this motion is important as well, because if they do not have the prerequisite flexibility, doing it for that thousands of reps and then you add it into the gym with weight is going to start being detrimental to their health. So adding air squats into your normal life, like we saw Tommy going through and all those aspects, learning how to squat correctly is going to be of utmost importance with everyday life. We want it to not only be a gym thing, but also into the real world thing. We want our athletes to be better in the real world and not just good in the gym. We train to be better out there and not in here, okay? So what you do out in the 23 hours outside of the gym is more important than the 1 hour that you do at the gym. When adding the squat into your programs, make sure that you are adding just body weight squats so people can practice. Feel free to do it at home while you're sitting in front of the couch, sit in a squat, whatever you may do to practice this squatting. Remember guys, stop searching, start coaching.
All I saw was smoke and fire. I didn't feel a thing. But suddenly I was rising higher, and I felt like I just made